Hey guys, this is Big Dave here to help you with your first exam. We're going to do a review. I'm at my house in Morro Bay. It's a beautiful day, 70 degrees, light breeze, got the ocean behind me. It just couldn't be any better. So when you do your study guide and your vocabulary and your essay questions, be sure you type everything. Vocabulary, type the term and then the definition. And the study guide, please help me type out the questions and the answers. That really helps me out a lot. And type your essay, of course, and I'll help with the essay here in just a bit. So I have the study guide here in front of me. I'm going to let you do the ones from the textbook yourself. There's only 3 of them this time. And where it says additional hints, mainly from the lectures, I'd like to help you with those because we weren't together to talk about a lot of this stuff, unfortunately. So let's start. Understand the caste system. When I think of the caste system, I think of India, obviously. I think of fixed social layers within Indian society, primarily based on ancestry, and it is intertwined with the Hindu religion. There are, let's see, how about 4 main castes and thousands of subcastes: Brahmins, warriors, traders, laborers. And there's a whole group of people, maybe a couple 100 million, I'm not sure of the exact number of people that are considered to be, I guess, so low they're outside of the caste system. And these are called the untouchables. What assumption was the Malthusian theory based on? Okay, Thomas Malthus was an English economist writing back in 1798. And he argued that population will grow exponentially, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, while food supply can only grow arithmetically, 1, 2, 3, 4. So he was predicting famines and other things during his day. So he didn't foresee all the technology that was going to occur in the agricultural sector. But it does seem to me in some parts of the world he's been at least maybe partially correct, maybe in parts of Africa. Okay, why does every map projection have some degree of distortion? Because it's impossible to take something off of a round surface and flatten it out without distortion. Imagine I had a globe and I put a tight cover on it. It had a zipper. I was able to take the cover off and try to flatten it out. It'd be pretty hard to make that thing flat once you have a lot of distortion on that cover. What else here? Know the underlying assumption of environmental determinism. Environmental determinism would argue that the climate and the landscape, the topography, exclusively controls human actions and conditions for cultural development. That's not as much in vogue these days. There's something called possibilism, which I'll get to in just a moment. I see that question here also. All right, let's see here. What geographic areas have the highest and lowest population growth rates? Africa, for sure, is going to be the highest. Last time I looked, there's about 2.6%, which is pretty high population growth rate. Europe would be the lowest. Europe's at 0. There are some countries in Europe that are actually at negative population growth rates. The United States, Asia, and Africa will be somewhere in the middle. If you include immigration in the United States, we're at about 1%. Latin America is probably 1.1, 1.2. You can look these up. These change all the time. Asia is probably at about 1.1%. Okay, so the highest is definitely Africa. The lowest would probably be Europe, in particular Western Europe. 3 stages of the demographic transition. The demographic transition is a model based on what England went through and now what most of the developed world has gone through, including the United States. There are 3 or 4 stages. We'll just worry about 3. The first stage, pre-industrial stage, and no nations are left in this stage anymore. The birth rate and the death rate would both be high in the first stage, which means the population would grow slowly. Most of the third world is in the second stage. That's called the transition stage. And that's where the birth rate remains high, but the death rate drops. And the reason the death rate dropped was because of the diffusion of medical technology, better sanitation, better methods of food preparation. So if you have a high birth rate, like in a place like India, or a place like even Kenya in Africa, or maybe even Mexico, if you have a high birth rate and you have a low death rate, the population is going to grow fairly rapidly. The third stage is called the advanced industrial stage, and that's where the United States sits, along with Australia, New Zealand, Canada. Western Europe, the more developed regions of the world. By developed, I mean economically developed. And in that stage, the model suggests that as a result of urbanization, people moving into cities, that the birth rate also drops. The key to this, it would be women, obviously. As women become more educated and more career-oriented, their childbearing years are sometimes delayed, and the birth rate in many advanced countries has come down. So if the birth rate's lower and the death rate's low, the population will grow very slowly. Some textbooks talk about a fourth stage, like Western Europe, where you even go into negative population growth rates. All right, with the largest sect of Islam, that would be Sunni. Probably 85–90% of Islamic people are Sunni. The largest minority group within Islam would probably be Shia, and they make up maybe 10–15% of the Islamic population. What experience does a cultural group undergo when it achieves a complete blending into society? That would be called assimilation. That would be people with Western European backgrounds in probably the United States, complete assimilation. I guess that would be a good example. What region of the world are Muslims particularly concentrated in? That'd be Southwest Asia, North Africa, also known as the Middle East. You also have a lot of Islamic people in Indonesia. What does the term cultural landscape mean? That's the mark left by humans on the land. Okay, different cultures leave different marks. It could be architecture, it could be farming practices, things like that. The mark left by man on the land. What are cultural hearths and where are they located? These are areas where civilization begins. Probably most anthropologists would argue that Mesopotamia is where civilization begins. And Mesopotamia is in present-day Iraq. It's kind of where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers come together. So maybe civilization begins there around 10,000 years ago. People start to settle down and they become sedentary. They start to farm. And gradually other things start to happen. Specialization of labor, a legal system. So Mesopotamia, probably the oldest. I have read some articles that suggest that the Nile region might be almost as old or just as old. So Mesopotamia, the Nile in Egypt, North China Plain in China, that's a very old civilization. The Indus Valley, the Indus River is primarily in Pakistan. So civilization there dates back several thousand years also. West Africa, the Ghana civilization. The Andes in South America, the Inca. Mesoamerica, that region where the Maya were located. What we now call southern Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, parts of Honduras. So civilization in Latin America, whether it be the Andean region or Mesoamerica, probably dates back 3,500 years. Okay, so these are some of the older civilizations. So write down for me Mesopotamia, the Nile, the North China Plain, Indus River, Mesoamerica, the Andes, and how about West Africa also. That should take care of it. What regions did Israel obtain in the Six-Day War of 1967? So Israel wins this war pretty big. They took or obtained, I don't want to make anybody angry on these terms, but they got the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip from Egypt. They obtained the West Bank, that's the West Bank of the Jordan River, and eastern Jerusalem, where the old city is, the very important religious shrines. They got the West Bank, East Jerusalem from Jordan, and they obtained the Golan Heights from Syria. So it would be the Sinai, the Gaza, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. Where am I on here? What is the name of a second language used by people to communicate when their native languages differ? That's called a lingua franca. It's in your textbook. like the common language for business in the world is English. In the future, maybe Mandarin will become more important. What geographic region of the world has the greatest number of languages spoken? That's Africa. And maybe as many as 4,000 different languages are spoken, which doesn't bode well for cultural unity on that continent all the time. Know how universalizing and ethnic religions differ. A universalizing religion actively seeks converts. So Christianity would be a good example of a universalizing religion. Ethnic religions don't go out and seek converts. So that's an example would be Judaism. Another example might be Hinduism. Define Sharia. That's Islamic law, and you can read about that in your book. Not all countries enforce it. Not all Islamic countries enforce it in the same manner. Some of the more strict Islamic law you might find in Saudi Arabia, Iran would be another good example. What religion has remained dominant in its area of origin? The one I think of is Hinduism. It's maybe the oldest major world religion. It started in South Asia and it remains dominant there. To a smaller degree, I believe like Shintoism in Japan might be a good example also. Understand how to determine the natural increase in a country. We're talking about population here. So you would take the birth rate and subtract the death rate. That gives you the natural increase of a country. Possibilism is kind of the opposite maybe of environmental determinism. And possibilism is the idea that humans are more important in cultural development. Like societies may look at the opportunities provided by the topography and by the climate and then make choices based on their level of technology. So I would probably argue that more advanced countries that have higher levels of technology, in that case, the topography and dry climates and things like that can be overcome. I think of like Israel. Israel's not blessed with a lot of natural resources, and it's not blessed with a lot of with a great climate. So, but they've overcome a lot of that with their levels of technology and education levels. Ethnocentrism is the idea that your ethnic group is superior to others, and you might argue that that could lead to some issues, right? If you think about that. All right. I think it's good to be proud of your ethnicity. Ethnocentrism is the idea that yours is superior, though. Apartheid. That was the South African system for the separate development of the white and the non-white races. And it's no longer in effect, which is a good thing. There was a guy named Nelson Mandela, one of the great souls ever to walk on this earth. And Nelson Mandela fought against apartheid in South Africa. And for his efforts, he went to jail for 25, 26 years. And when he came out, one of the most amazing stories was he became the president of South Africa, and he ended apartheid, I believe it was about 1994, and won the Nobel Prize, along with the white leader, Frederick de Klerk. So give them both some credit. What is a dialect? It's a regional variation of a language. You probably know that people in New York or Boston sound different than people in the south of the United States, right? So they're a regional variation of a language. Zionism is the desire for an independent Jewish state in Palestine, in the Middle East. Know how to determine the infant mortality rate. The infant mortality rate is how many babies die before the age of 1. In terms of migration, what would be considered a push factor? If you think about migration, there are push factors and pull factors. Push factors are things that make you want to leave. Pull factors are things that draw you to a location. So in its most basic sense, I guess push factors would be poverty, lack of opportunity. The pull factor would be the hope for a better life. I think of Latin America and the United States. Grinding poverty, lack of educational opportunities, lack of job opportunities may be the push factor. What's the allure of the United States? Obviously, our standard of living, more educational opportunities, potentially more job opportunities also. All right, where am I here? Swahili is an example of a Creole language. First of all, a pidgin language is like a simplified language, often the combination of two or more languages. If the pidgin becomes the primary language of a group of speakers, it's then called a Creole language. So Swahili is an example. Afrikaans in South Africa is an example of a Creole language. What else? Carib in the Caribbean. When I was in the Caribbean region, I heard a lot of that. Very interesting. Guest workers are workers that generally come from poor countries to richer countries to work for a period of time. In the United States, we use the H-2A visas. I know for farm workers to come into the United States. In the Middle East, you would have workers coming from oil-poor countries to oil-rich countries. Oil-poor, Egypt, Syria, maybe Jordan. Let's see, oil-rich countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates. In Southeast Asia, you would have workers come from like Indonesia, Myanmar, to probably go to Singapore, okay? Where are infant mortality rates the highest and the lowest? Definitely the highest in Africa, the lowest in Japan and West Africa. United States, we do okay. We come in 20th. We should be doing better. Maybe if we had a healthcare system that worked a little better for poor people, then infant mortality rate may drop or could drop further in the United States. Okay, essays, you're answering both of them. You know, give me a page each typed. If you need to do more, you can. Don't overdo it. You know what I mean? It's a lot of stuff for me to read. Not that I don't enjoy reading your essays, but honestly, there may not be enough beer in the world for too much of this stuff. So here we go. Present positive and negative effects of illegal immigration on the economy of California. Do you feel the U.S. needs to control illegal immigration? Why do you feel this way? And what measures could be taken? So, hot topic, obviously, right? In the political campaign that took place. So let's see. I try to be fair on all these issues the best I can. I'd like you to be fair too. Give both sides and then give me your opinion. That's up to you. But things I think about, the pros of illegal immigration, it does provide low-wage workers in many industries in the United States. In the agricultural sector, right? Child care, construction, the landscape industry. They help keep prices low because they're working at very low wages, so that may keep, you know, food prices lower. There's some controversial stuff in here. You can look it up yourself. Another pro, energetic, you know, workers who are willing to start businesses and maybe do jobs that Native Americans don't want to do anymore, particularly in times where we have high employment. So maybe we need a lot of these workers. And again, do jobs that maybe I wouldn't do. I mean, can you imagine my skin? You know, I'm close to an albino here, working out in the fields in the San Joaquin Valley. I wouldn't last. So very valuable in terms of the workforce. What are some cons here? Some people argue that it adds to population pressures in some states, like Arizona, Texas, California. Maybe it can depress wages in times of high unemployment. Maybe then Native workers would be willing to do some jobs they wouldn't otherwise be willing to do. Maybe. Some people argue it puts pressure on public services like prisons and schools. And some people argue it may lead to higher taxes for Native Americans having to pay for schools and prisons. So you can probably come up with some more also. It's a very interesting topic. And what measures could be taken? Donald Trump pushed the wall, correct? You want to build a gigantic wall. Let's see here. Open borders is maybe the other extreme. We could have immigration reform. You could have it more based on education levels and the kind of jobs we need in the United States, or more on chain migration, where you can bring family members over. So a lot of things for you to think about on that question. That's a great question. Thank you very much. The other one is really great too. Discuss examples of improvement and deterioration in race relations in the United States since 1970. In other words, after the Civil Rights Movement, how have we done? Do you feel that racism in the United States is getting better or worse since 1970? Justify your answer with statistics and examples. Again, try to be fair on both sides of this question. Give both sides of the argument and give me your opinion. I'd love to hear it. I have mine, and I'm sure you're going to have yours. So, on the pro side, there are many more middle-class minority families, which is a really, really positive thing, I believe. There are many, many more mixed marriages than there used to be. I view that as a positive also. There are more minority elected officials, another positive. The ultimate example, obviously, has been Barack Obama. Let's see here. How has it gotten worse or not better? There are still big wage disparities between the incomes of white America and even Asian Americans versus Latino America and African Americans. So there's a big difference in wages still. The childhood poverty rates are much higher in Black America than in white America, for sure. The justice system, here you go, right? There's higher rates of incarceration for minorities than there are for whites in the United States. That's a complicated issue, for sure. Police brutality, right? George Floyd, obviously, and all the other cases that led up to the Black Lives Movement. You could talk about some of that. Still higher unemployment rates for minorities. You know, there's so many things to talk about on this issue. So give me the pros, and there are some, and give me the cons, there are some, and tell me what you feel about it all. I hope that helps you. Remember, type this all up on the essays. Give me some citations other than me, all right? Yeah, give me some citations to prove your point. Give credit where credit's due. It's really important in college that you do that. Okay, I think I'm gonna jump in the water. It's getting warmer out here, and it's just beautiful. I may head out there right now. So good luck on all this. Do a good job for me, okay? Turn it in on time, too. See ya.